some people have questioned the way in which the BBC handled the coverage of that story, the way they broke the news. Let's listen to Julia Hartley-Brewer, and she's going to show you the clip.
And I want to play you a little clip of various BBC programmes and news presenters talking about Holocaust Memorial Day, which was, of course, yesterday. Have a little watch and a listen.
27th of January, Holocaust Memorial Day, a day for remembering the 6 million people who were murdered by the Nazi regime over 80 years ago.
Now, today marks Holocaust Memorial Day, a day for remembering the 6 million people who were murdered by the Nazi regime.
Have you spotted the mistake yet? 6 million people. What have they not mentioned?
Over 80 years ago.
Today marks Holocaust Memorial Day, a day for remembering the 6 million people who were murdered by the Nazi regime over 80 years ago.
So 3 different news programmes, major presenters, all saying the same thing. Clearly a script that, if it's the BBC, has gone through at least 20 very senior people in a committee. And did you hear what wasn't said? Because they were saying the Holocaust Memorial Day was about the 6 million people who were murdered. No, it's not. No, not more than 6 million people were murdered in the camps by the Nazis. The key figure that 6 million refers to is Jews. The BBC on Holocaust Memorial Day failing to mention that it was Jews who were targeted, particularly a concern when they talk about their Reithian, absolute key aim, which is not just to entertain but also to inform and educate our nation at a time when many, many children aren't taught about the Holocaust in schools, and many, many people, adults, don't know what actually happened in the Holocaust. Claire Pierceville, I mean, genuinely, you don't hate the BBC enough. I said to my husband last night, I don't even think I can justify morally paying the licence fee anymore. I have to obey the law. I think it's immoral for me to give these people money now.
Clearly a mistake. But let's look at the definition. What do you mean by the Holocaust? Does the Holocaust only refer to the Jewish people who lost their lives during that period of time? We know that there were others that were also targeted, and the Jewish community the most disproportionately targeted. It was an attempt to completely wipe out the population. But does the Holocaust, with a capital H, also refer to the gay people who lost their lives, to the Roma traveller community that lost their lives, the communist people, the many Polish people? Is that what the Holocaust is referring to? Or does the Holocaust only refer to the Jewish people? If so, then the presenter clearly should have said the 6 million Jewish people who perished at the hands of the National Socialists. Or should they have said, well, it was 6 million Jewish people, 2 million Roma travellers, I don't know how many gay people lost their lives during the Holocaust. So what was the mistake? Clearly, what they've picked up on is the lack of mentioning Jewish people, the Jewish community. And I can understand how Jewish people might find that offensive, upsetting. But when do we remember the other communities by name? Very rarely. I don't think there is a day to remember the Romani travellers, for example. Let's have a look at another clip and see how other people are reacting to it. I don't like this guy. Can't stand him, Nick Ferrari, but he's on the same page. Here we go.
Wrong. The 6 million were the Jewish people. It is more than 8 million. How can you be so factually incorrect? Having totally omitted news at 6 because coastal erosion in Suffolk and Carol Kirkwood's departure far more important than more than 8 million people dying on the Holocaust, 6 million of whom were Jewish people, It did just about stagger onto News at 10. 6 million Jewish people were made 6 million people, and 2.5 million people who were also killed in the Holocaust were totally ignored. That is a journalistic fail on just about every single level, and the person who wrote it should be fired. Just gone.
So Nick Ferrari, during the pandemic, was banging on about forcing people to take an injection, which is similar to what some people did during the war, obviously with different implications, but I can't stand that guy. Doesn't mean that he's wrong about this. Nick Ferrari. Comment here from Craig. What do you make of our immigration problem? Craig, I don't know what country you're in. What country are people pouring into your country? Are you a Palestinian who has to live next door to illegal settlements with people from all corners of the world? Where are you? Where is this immigration or emigration problem? Leon is saying hi to you. And Craig, you're from Liverpool, England. Well, the biggest immigrant community in Liverpool, I think, are the Irish, aren't they? Isn't that what the name Scouse, is that named after an Irish dish, or am I mistaken? Maybe it's a Scandinavian dish, but it was named after immigrant communities in Liverpool, and there's certainly been an influx of Irish people fleeing poverty made their way to Liverpool. Craig, I don't know if you have any Irish heritage. Is that the immigration that you were talking about? And we've got Kim Haman saying hi to you. Kenneth is saying that Liverpool is known to be the capital of Ireland. Yeah, look, there's been immigration to the British Isles and the British and Irish Isles for thousands of years. That's how we all got here. Immigration doesn't have to be the same. It doesn't have to be a problem. Google Chrome is saying they're not the same. False equivalency, you stupid twerp. Okay, someone's getting aggressive there. What are your views on Palestine? Well, I stand with the Palestinians. That's my view on that one. But I'm open to debate. I want everybody to have their say. If you disagree with me, you're welcome. You can send me a voice note. I've got a phone connected to WhatsApp. If you want to tell me something, I believe in freedom of speech. I believe we all should have the right to say what we want to say. I don't believe in book burning or anything like that. And Ali is saying, okay, so you're human, so I follow. Yeah, but Ali, don't follow me just because you agree with me. If you're a Palestine supporter and you're only following me because I support Palestine too, well, broaden your horizons, Ali. You should be speaking to the people that disagree with you. From the clash of the spark of the clash of opinions. Isn't that what Einstein said? Look, let's listen to the other side. This is Danny, I forget his surname, but he's an Israeli politician.
Today, remembrance alone is not enough. Because while we remember, Jews are attacked. While we speak, hatred spreads. Words, slogans, and statements have failed to stop the violence. I stand before you as Israel's ambassador to sound the alarm. The time for talk is over. The time for action is now. In recent years, we have heard many warnings from this podium about the rise of anti-Semitism, about dangerous lies, about how hatred begins with language. Those warnings are right, but they ring hollow when the lies, that fuel anti-Semitism are allowed to spread, including here, in this building, in the UN. When false narratives are repeated in this chamber, they do not stay here. They spread across the world with the rubber stamp of the UN. They harden into belief, they turn into hatred. To my fellow ambassadors here today, when you return to your missions later this afternoon, please ask for the numbers. How many anti-Semitic incidents were reported in the past year in your country? How many threats? How many attacks? Then ask the harder questions. How many indictments? How many prosecutions? How many convictions? When you see that gap, do not explain it away. That gap is a measure of failure. It is a space where hatred grows. It is not enough to come here once a year to speak about remembrance and then go home and allow the same hatred to spread unchecked. Remembrance without action is empty. Hatred that begins with words does not remain words. It spreads and it kills. Anti-Semitism did not end in 1945. It adapted. Today, it often hides behind hostility to Israel. We hear it in chants to globalize the Intifada. We see it in calls to boycott Israel. We see it on college campuses where Jewish students are harassed, excluded, and intimidated. This is not protest. This is not free speech. This has a name. The name is anti-Semitism.
Okay. Was the call to boycott Russia when they invaded Ukraine, was that Russophobic? He's equating criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, and there's been anti-Semitic attacks. We know that. We know anti-Semitism didn't go away, but you can't equate criticism of a country, boycotting a country. It is our democratic right to trade with whom we want or buy what we want. You can't force me to buy an Israeli product, can you? Ray is saying the Khazars are not Semitic people, so there could be no question about. Well, you're getting into semantics there, Ray. It doesn't really make a difference whether you believe European Jewish people are the descendants of converts or of the real tribe of Israel. If you hate Jewish people because they're Jewish, then you're a hateful person, and you are wrong to do so. It doesn't matter what their DNA. I wouldn't play into that game, the idea of who is genetically Jewish and who isn't, because it's a dangerous game to be playing. Leo saying words are literally worse than carpet bombing. I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Ali is saying the original symbol was the candle, but they want to change it to the Star of David. I think I know the candle you're talking about. The language of love is truth, as the language of truth is love. Nemo Mortalium. And that's from Kenneth. Thank you. And Vike is saying hatred never cures. Yeah, exactly. Look, we're on this Holocaust Remembrance Day. Aren't we? When we say never again, we should be referring to everybody. And it did happen again since 1945. It happened in Rwanda. Happened in Bosnia. Happened in Gaza. There's been many incidences of genocide. We haven't learned our lesson, and it could be anybody. It could be Congo, this Kenneth is mentioning. Thank you. Sudan. Leo is saying, Ray, get the hell out of there. I don't know. Ali is saying that the Uyghurs are suffering a genocide. Okay. Well, it could happen anywhere then, couldn't it? Of course, there are people that exaggerate a genocide, an ethnic cleansing, to try to give a excuse to invade a country. George is saying Kolomos. Don't quite know what that means. Even the monks in other countries forgot the name. Okay. Well, look, I don't want to be too divisive. Surely we can all agree that we hope there'll never be any more Holocaust. There was, of course, before the Holocaust with a capital H in the 20th century. The first Holocaust of the 20th century was the Armenian genocide. The Armenian people lost, I think, 2 million, 3 million. But do the numbers even matter? You know, one life is a tragedy and a million is a statistic. It is the intention behind the plan to get rid of a people. And I know what's happened in Gaza. A lot of people try to question, oh well, it's not a genocide, it's not this, it's not that. It was legally declared a plausible case of genocide. Even if it's not, or even if you won't accept that term, that's just not in your vocabulary and you won't call it a genocide, is it not still wrong? Should it not still have been stopped? Were they not innocent people being wiped out? And the vast majority of them, women and children, and we get stuck in arguments over terminology, and was it a this and was it a that? Children, so many children lost their lives. And we were watching it happening. And people that we got to know on social media, because they were posting every day, we saw them. The next day they were gone. And I'm sure you all remember Bisan, who every day logged in to say, I'm still alive. And thankfully, she is alive. She's a survivor. She's a Holocaust survivor, the modern day Holocaust in Gaza. But so many of the people that she was with are not. Robbie Nick is saying, what about the Boer War? Okay, well, I don't know. What about the Boer War, Robbie? It's not a topic I'm clued up on, but I'm sure a lot of innocent people lost their lives. This was the British against the Dutch, against the Afrikaans in South Africa, if I'm correct. Boer means farmer. They're the farmer people. Kenneth is saying, whilst the media feast on the blood and the pain and hatred. Ray is saying, I come from Europe and have had more opportunities in my life thanks to Jewish people. I have nothing to do with Zionism. Okay, there you go. Well, our friend on the screen was equating criticism of Zionism with a dislike of Jewish people. It always seems to boil down to, or one of the points that's made is that this is the only Jewish state, criticism of the world's only Jewish state. And there are so many Muslim countries and there are so many Christian countries. Well, there's only one Russian country. The world's only Russian state didn't make it okay or legal for Russia to do what Russia did. Kenneth is saying Irish stew too. Well, look, the Irish people suffered what's known as the Great Hunger. And Gortamor, I think it's pronounced in Irish. And this is what's sometimes erroneously called the famine. Again, we get into semantics and is it okay to call it this or to call it that? Irish people dislike what happened in the 1840s being referred to as a famine because there was plenty of food, but the good food was being shipped out of the country by the British. And then when the potato crop failed, there was nothing to eat because that was what the poor people were surviving on. So from an Irish perspective, that was an engineered famine. And we've heard about engineered famine over the last couple of years. And interestingly, at the time, it was the Ottoman Empire, the Muslim state at the time, that offered help and charity to the Irish people. And against the will of Queen Victoria, who didn't want to be shown up by the Ottoman Empire by them doing more than she was doing for the Irish people. And in fact, the Ottoman Sultan sent ships full of food and aid in secret behind her back. And for that reason, the Irish people remember the Ottoman Empire fondly. There's even football clubs with the crescent moon symbol in Dublin that remember that link. And that doesn't mean that the Ottoman Empire were great. I've just mentioned the Armenian genocide. The Ottoman Empire did many terrible things, but they did a good thing for the Irish people. And it's very hard when you're very partisan and your enemy does a good thing. It's hard to acknowledge that. If you're an Irish nationalist or a Republican and you want to portray the British as evil, the British never did anything good for us, the British did some good and some bad. The Ottoman Empire did some good and some bad. We all have to exist in this world and acknowledge that it is human nature, and any powerful government will inevitably commit some atrocities. Safe is saying, what your country? What your country? I'll let you work that one out. Safe Rajput. I wonder. But we are broadcasting from England. Gustav, who's been on here before, says, our plant pathology professor taught us English also destroyed Irish houses. Yeah, there's no doubt about that one. Robbie Nick is saying, centralized agricultural distribution like grain in Ukraine in 1930s. So yes, we had, before the Holocaust, you also had the Holodomor. This is when many Ukrainian people lost their life. The crop, was it mishandled? Was it requisitioned for the state? Is that why the Ukrainian people starved? Or was it just nature and farming? And I don't know enough about the Holodomor, but it is another catastrophe, human catastrophe, and it's in our nature to want to pin the blame on human beings rather than say, well, this was an act of God. But everything is God's will, isn't it? The good, the bad, whatever happens in your life, everything happens for a reason. Life is a test. It's not meant to be all plain sailing and easy. And yes, there will be horrible catastrophes in life. Human nature. Dubs Era is saying human nature. That's what Michael Jackson said, didn't he? Tell them that it's human nature. Haroon, great to hear from you. Haroon is saying, for some reason I can't put it on the screen, it is human nature to have B-days. Haroon's cracking me up. Dubs is questioning. An act of God. Yes, and some insurance policies don't cover that. But everything is an act of God. Everything happens with God's permission, thy will be done, as it says in the Lord's Prayer. And Robbie's quoting another Michael Jackson song. All I want to say is they don't really care about us. He got that right, didn't he? Michael Jackson. What happened to him? Drug overdose. Terrible. Terrible what happened to Michael. And the British Empire also with its times of shame. But we're wise. Yes. Yeah, look, all empire. And it's difficult when an empire has got your name on it. If you're proud to be British, naturally you're going to be proud of the British Empire. But they did some good things. They did a lot of bad things. If you are Muslim or Turkish and you hear about the Ottoman Empire, you're going to, and it was a Muslim empire, you're going to want to be proud of it and say, wasn't the Ottoman Empire great? And it did some good things. It saved Ireland many lives during the Great Hunger. It also enslaved teenage boys and forcibly converted them and made them serve as janissaries in the army. Look, no country, no culture has a clean slate. If you're a believer and you believe in God and you believe in your book, you could look at the book and say the morals in the book are perfect. But has anyone ever lived up to that? I don't think so. And maybe that's the point, that we will never be good enough, but we can strive to be better, and we can strive to say never again. But whenever you watch these films about the Holocaust and other historic moments, you always imagine yourself as being the good guy, and you think, well, I would never have done that. But how do you know? How do you know if push came to shove, would you inform on your fellow citizen? Would you throw someone under the bus to save your skin? Would you snitch on your neighbour? Love thy neighbour. Don't snitch on them. Robbie is saying, from my South African perspective, there is validity to, if it wasn't this empire, it would have been a different empire. If not British, then perhaps Chinese. Yeah, there's quite a lot of Chinese influence and community in South Africa. But now we're going to be biased. Is China's sphere of influence in the world a more morally just influence than modern Western civilization, Britain and America? Is what China's doing in Africa a different kind of imperialism? Maybe we just, years later, and 100 years ago, everyone was barbaric, and now not so much. But China have a lot of influence in Africa. When Sudan decided to sell all of its oil to China, when Sudan was one big country, the biggest country in Africa, a Muslim country, for the large part Arab country, when they decided to sell all their oil to China, the next thing you know, you've got South Sudan. You've got a split, you've got partition, like you have in Ireland, like you have in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. 80 years ago, it was all one big country under British rule, and it could have been a big independent country. It wasn't to be. Mark saying imperialism is what Trump is up to. Yes, is he building the American empire just before he leaves office in the next couple of years. And Kenneth is mentioning Nigeria. Well, Nigeria is one big united country, but people often say that it shouldn't have been a united country because you've got Muslims in the north, Christians in the south. They're different culturally or religiously, and you've forced them to live in the same country. But why not? Why not have a half Muslim, half Christian country? The region of Greater Syria, when it fell into Muslim hands, when it was conquered, didn't become majority Muslim for a few hundred years. And you had Muslims and Christians sharing the same building in the Umayyad Mosque, which was a church. It was functioning as a church and a mosque at some point until the Christians, I think, sold their section, or it became entirely a mosque and the Christians went elsewhere. I think that's sad. I wish the Christians and Muslims could be together and could make an alliance. Make an alliance with Rome, whoever Rome is. Harun is saying, is Africa being forced to learn Chinese? Well, God, good question. Many African countries speak English as a lingua franca or as a second language or an official language. You go through Africa, you can walk from one end of Africa to another, or almost speaking either French or English. Are any of them learning Chinese or being forced to learn Chinese or having Chinese inflicted on them? I don't think so. But is that because Chinese is too hard to learn and the Chinese are already speaking the new lingua franca, which seems to be English? And Mark is saying, only decent live stream tonight. Well done. Thank you very much, Mark. Do you mean it's the only decent one I've done ever? Or is it the only decent one that's happening? I'll take the compliment either way. And Kenneth is saying they've been having troubles recently in North Nigeria. They have, and Donald Trump sent a few bombs over there. Did that help? Did he do that? Did he attack Nigeria? Not every Muslim is a believer. This is from Ray. Not every Muslim is a believer. A name means nothing as long as it exists in your heart. Moreover, you do not have to conform to others, such as culture or race. I like that. That sounds like common sense. And in China, they ask about the knee. This is from Harun. They say ni hao. I can't laugh. And we've got Travel with Saj, aka The World for You, who knows a lot about China because he's been there. I urge you all to get on to World for You. That's with a number 4, like we do on Lessons for Life. And you can find out about China. You can catch a glimpse of the Uyghur culture, and there's some very interesting conversations on there. This is a topic that's hard to touch upon because it gets very hushed up, but World for You can give you an insight on the world, including China. So I urge you all to do that. I hope you're doing well, Saj. Feel free to drop us a voice note. If no one's sent a voice note yet, but the number is up there, because I just want to hear your voice on my channel. Travel with Saj, World for You is saying, so the Han Muslims don't really think the Uyghurs give a good name for the Muslim. Yeah, there are. So Han, as from what I understand, is the majority ethnic group in China, and there are people from that ethnic group who are Muslims. They or their ancestors converted to Islam. But the Uyghurs are a distinct ethnic group, a Turkic ethnic group, who happen to be Muslim. They are from East Turkestan, or the Xinjiang province. And I wonder, does their separatism stem from their ethnicity as much as it does from their religion. We hear very much about them being Muslim, but I think that's because other Muslims around the world want to stand with their oppressed brothers and sisters when they hear that one part of the Ummah is hurting and the Ummah is like a human body. They are more serious with the religion. This is from Travel with Saj. So the recent thing is the halal sign is being banned or tucked away or covered. Robbie is saying persecution for the Falun Gong in China also hushed up. Well, there's the Falun Gong, there's the Uyghur Muslims, there's the Dalai Lama and Tibet, there's Hong Kong, there's all these causes that the West jump on and support and feel sorry for and feel sympathy for, rather like the way Muammar Gaddafi of Libya felt sorry for the IRA and the plight in Ireland. I'm not saying one or the other is correct or right or wrong, just saying it's not surprising. All right, folks, I'm going to love you and leave you. It's been a pleasure to catch up on this Holocaust Memorial Day. Let's let it never happen again. But we will do another live stream. This has been Lessons for Life. We were here. We are gone. Latest.